So with the MongoDB server up and running, let's add the MongoDB driver, which simply is a package we can use to connect to MongoDB. For SQL or MySQL, we used MySQL2 and also SQLize. Now in my case here, or with MongoDB, we run npm install -- save, and then it's just MongoDB. And this installs the official MongoDB driver, which we can use to connect to MongoDB. Now with that installed, we can start using it. And we can start using it in the first file that gets executed when we bring up our server, which would be the app.js file, of course. There, we basically already do some database setup with SQLize, and we can get rid of all of that. We did create a default user here, but we did this in the MySQL world, so we'll start from scratch, basically. We can get rid of all the associations and so on we set up here, so let's get rid of that. Therefore, we don't need these imports anymore. Let's get rid of all of them, including SQLize from the util database folder. And with that all removed, also here, where I've used my user model to find a user by ID, I'll at least comment this out for now, so that we really have a lean app.js file. And now I'll go to my util folder, and there the database folder. And I still want to connect to a database here, but that will no longer be SQLize, of course. So let me clear all of that here too, and let's now set up some code that will connect us to MongoDB. Now for that, I'll first of all import MongoDB here. So I'll set MongoDB equal to requiring MongoDB. This gives us access to the MongoDB package. In there, we can extract a Mongo client constructor by simply accessing MongoDB, the thing we're importing, and then Mongo client with a capital M and C. The constant here can be named whatever you want, of course. So now with that, we can use that client to connect to our MongoDB database. And we do connect by running MongoDB client, Mongo client, connect like this. So this is all we need to do to create a connection to MongoDB. Now connect here simply takes a URL to connect. And that URL is exactly that URL you have in the connect modal here on the MongoDB Atlas cluster page. So you can copy that and paste that into here. Now one important thing, you need to make sure you're using the right user, and in my case that should be Maximilian, the user you created in your MongoDB cluster under security users, and the fitting password for this user. So I'll quickly insert my password here too. With that, we got all set up that we need to establish such a connection. Now, the connect method here actually returns a promise, which either fails if, or throws an error if the connection fails. And in such a case here, I, of course, want to output my error here so that we can diagnose it. Or we have a successful connection. So here I can say console log connected. And with that, we have a file which, when we execute it, would connect to MongoDB. Now, of course, we want to execute this together with app.js. So here, where we bring up our server, or actually, we're not doing this right now, but where we will soon do this again, here, I also want to connect to my database. So to do that, how can we achieve this? Well, what we can do here is we can wrap our connection code here into a method, and I'll simply create a method by using const here, and I'll name it Mongo connect. This will be an arrow function, and inside of that arrow function here, I will then execute my Mongo client connect code like this. I also expect to get a callback here, and I will call that callback and pass result into it here inside of my then block once we did connect here. Because the result, I can already tell you this, will be the client. So basically a client object, which gives us access to the database. And then here, all I need to do is I need to export Mongo connect, this function here. Now with that exported, we can go back to app.js and import that here. So here, I'll also name that Mongo Connect, but that name is totally up to you. And I'll import from the util folder and there the database file. There I will import my Mongo Connect constant, which will be a function because I'm exporting a function here. So in app.js at the bottom, I will execute Mongo connect. And remember here, we have to pass a callback. So a function that will get executed once we connect it. And here I will get access to the client object. So in here, I will run app listen and bring up my node server because I want to do that once I know that I connected to the database. And I will also console log my client here so that we can have a look into that. With all of that, let's run npm start and bring up our server. And the problem I now have is simply that when I bring up my server, we do actually register all our routes here, and in the routes files we dive into our controllers, and in our controllers we are using that sequelize object, which simply does not exist anymore because we're importing the models here, and in our models we require sequelize, and well, that simply does all not work as before anymore. So in order to make this work, for now to simply see how we connect, I will comment out my routes here, and therefore also comment them out down there. So now we got no working routes for the moment, but this means that we can now at least connect. And indeed, with the automatic restart, this does not look like an error. Instead, we see connected here, and then we see this Mongo client object, which we got with some details about the connection. And this is in the end the object which we'll be able to interact with, to work with, to, well, create data in our database, for example. So now we are connected, but of course our setup is broken now because it still relies on sequelize, which we're not using anymore. We're not even using SQL anymore. So let's now implement MongoDB in our app step by step. And whilst we do this, you will learn how to insert data, find data, and so on.